It's the 5th round of the National Chess Championship, and we just had the biggest upset of the tournaments we have seen. Now, this game features Osayande Kingsley, a junior player rated 2065, versus FIDE master Akinseye Daniel, rated 2252, one of the highest in the country. Now, this game was played on the 5th round of the National Chess Championship Qualifiers, a tournament designed to produce 4 players qualified to go on to play the invitational sections coming up next month. So the game starts off with pawn to e4. We have pawn to e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, and bishop to b5. Now this is the Ruy Lopez. Now from my analysis, it seems as though this opening has been particularly played a lot in this tournament with different players. We've had international master Femi Balogun play this. We've had so many other players play this opening line. So it seems that it's now a common weapon here. And now it seems that it's no longer a surprise in this tournament. Now pawn to a6, bishop to a4, and knight to f6. We have short castles by white short castles here, and black plays bishop to e7. Now this is the closed variation of the Ruy Lopez, or you can call it the Spanish game. The move rook to e1 comes on the board, bringing the rook now to the e file, and then the move b5 comes in. The bishop comes back now to b3 as it was attacked by the pawn move, and now pawn to d6, trying to open up squares for the bishop. Now the move pawn to c3, trying to strike in the center because the position is a bit closed. Now short castles by black as well, and we have the move pawn to h3. Now this move actually nullifies black's attempts to come to the g square. Now the move knight to a5, attacking the bishop and then possibly aiming to come to the c4 square. Now bishop to c2 on the board, aiming towards the king side, and the move pawn to c5 comes in. Now both players are really ambitious in this game. And now the move pawn to d4, queen to c7. Now all these are theoretical positions. For context, this is the close variation of the Ruy Lopez, but in this line now we are now in the Chigorin defense. So lots of strong players have played this in the past. We have Wesley So, we have Vishy Anand, we have even Magnus Carlsen as well as played this, Garry Kasparov and Peter Svidler. So thousands of games have gotten to this particular line, and I'm sure both players came in well prepared. Now queen to c7 and the move pawn to d5. In this position, the usual standard move here is usually to reroute the knight to d7, to knight to d2, knight to f1, and then either landing on e3 or g3. But in this position, he decides to go for a more direct approach, pawn to d5. Now what this actually does is that many times it creates counterplay for black, as black can have chances of pushing this and then maybe playing a knight to b7, knight to c5, and then invading the d3 square. So this actually gives black a counterplay, and he starts the move pawn to c4. Now the move pawn to b4 comes instantly. Usually white still follows his usual trend of routing the knight, but here white Kingsley decides to go on the aggressive breakout in b4. Now en passant cx b3, and then pawn takes. Now the rook has been opened and black needs to get a bit more careful. So he decides to play the move bishop to d7, and now the move bishop to a3, the standard move in this position. So according to Ray Robinson versus Savian Samuel, this was what was actually played, and they continued moves later. I think it was played in the year 2017. So let's go on. The bishop comes now to d8, also reinforcing the defense of the knight. Now the move pawn to g4, and it's in this position that we have a completely new game. So Kingsley introduces a novelty here with pawn to g4, indicating his attempt or his intent here to attack on the king side. Now rook to e8 coming in, and then black tries to bring pieces towards the center, because it's a standard rule that whenever a flank attack is being played or is being prepared, the other side should try to break in the center. So rook to e8 comes on board, and now knight bd2, the journey of the knight now starts. And notice, it seems as though the c pawn is hanging, but it's not, because if the queen captures this, now we have the move bishop takes d6. Now what this is doing is that the anchor pawn of this pawn chain has now fallen, so we are now exchanging this for this, and eventually this pawn will now be a target pawn because it doesn't have a defender as well. So the FIDE master realizes this and doesn't go for this pawn, and he decides to now maneuver his knight to b7, the standard idea here, to eventually try and either attack the e4 square or land on the d3 square. So now rook to e3 comes in directly, now defending this, because now the move knight to b7 is also a multi-potential move because it also defends this pawn as well. So Kingsley comes in with his rook defending the c3 square, and now queen to b8. Now according to the engine always has a way of surprising us, and here the engine actually recommended either g6 or g5 to prepare against the incoming pawn storm that white may actually have. So black decides to go queen to b8 now, and here the journey of the knight continues, knight to f1. So knight to f1, bishop to b6. Now black goes aggressive, attacking the rook now on e3. Now white comes back here to e2, defending the f2 square as well, and now rook to c8. So what we can see here now is that black now starts his counter attack. But let's see. Now the queen gets developed to d2, and the move pawn to a5 was played, trying now to bust open the queen side and then improvise on the other side as well. So now the move bishop to b2, carefully placing the bishop now to still maintain this pawn and leave the queen to go elsewhere to attack. Now the move pawn to b4. Now this is a very strategic question you're supposed to ask. Between capturing this pawn or pushing the pawn to c4, which would you go for and why? Let me know your reasons in the comment section. Between pushing the pawn to c4 or then capturing, which one would you rather go for? Now in this position, Kingsley decided to capture the b pawn, and it's for a particular reason. Now the move bishop to b5 comes in, attacking the rook as well. So you see now that black is also trying his counter aggressive ideas here, and the rook comes now to e1. The pawn recaptures, and now the knight eventually lands on g3. So this now the knight has gotten to his dream position. Rook takes a1, rook captures, and pawn to g6. Now this move does a very vital stop by stopping this knight from invading any of the king side. So that's what he has done, and it's a common principle in chess that if you want to limit a knight from jumping forward, one thing you can do is to push a pawn forward that limits the squares of the knight. So rook to c1 comes back, defending this bishop now, and then queen to a7, now creating more attack on this side, and then possibly trying to also infiltrate here, now mounting serious pressure on this pawn. Now the move knight to f5 comes in, a stunning sacrifice that I never expected, I never saw it coming, and that was actually one of my main purposes for making this video, because the knight sacrifice came from nowhere, just a seemingly equal position, and the best move according to the engine was actually bishop to d8, which is surprising. Bishop to d8 here, probably stopping the fork that white is actually threatening. So the FIDE master, not realizing this, captures the knight. So here he just spent 3 minutes trying to figure out why. Meanwhile Kingsley spent over 5 minutes in this position to find this move, knight to f5, and now he spends 3 minutes and captures. And the FIDE master asks, what can you do here? And now Kingsley shows his cards. Queen to g5, check. attacking the king and also the knight on f6 as well. And now the king moves to f8. Now the queen captures the knight, gaining back the material that he just sacrificed, and also having the initiative as well, which is actually very important in this position. And now bishop takes f2, attacking the king, and the king is forced to move. So now the king comes up to g2, and then white asks, do you have any follow-up here? And now the move bishop to e2, attacking this knight as well. But now Kingsley finds a very, very vital move in this position, knight to g5. Now what this has done is that it has shifted the tides and everything is about to fall. Now knight to d8 comes in, defending both this and also stopping the threat of queen to h8, trying to win the rook as well. But here comes the stunner now. Queen takes d6 check. Now this is a really fascinating position because it has also opened up now the bishop. The bishop now can take this pawn as well. And here king to 8 to e8. Do you believe that it didn't take up to 5 moves here before black actually resigned? And after the move, queen takes e5, grabbing the second pawn from this position. Knight to e8, knight to e6 comes in, and there's absolutely nothing that black can do here as he captures the knight and he just resigned. So this goes to show that having the initiative in every position actually matters than the material, because at the end of the day you're going to gain back your compensation. So this was how Kingsley got his biggest chess upset by defeating a FIDE master rated over 2200, and I'm rooting for everyone in the tournament to actually have a good day. If you really enjoyed this video, kindly like and then share in the comment section. I'll be waiting for you guys there. Thank you so much. It's the Chess Prof signing out. Bye.